Chapter 1. The Anatomy of Magnetism. Think back to a moment when you were entirely captivated by someone. Perhaps it was at a crowded social gathering, a high-stakes meeting, or even a chance encounter in a coffee shop. This person did not shout for attention. They did not bang their fist on a table or command the room with a booming voice. Yet, the moment they began to speak, the ambient noise seemed to fade. People naturally gravitated toward them, leaning in just a fraction of an inch closer, hanging onto every word. When they looked at you, you felt a strange, sudden warmth. You felt as though in that specific fraction of a second, you were the only human being on the planet who mattered. You walked away from that interaction feeling lighter, more intelligent, and intensely curious about them. For a long time, humanity has looked at this kind of magnetic pull and labeled it a mysterious gift. We have been conditioned to believe that this quality is an innate spark, a genetic lottery ticket that some lucky souls are simply born holding, while the rest of us are forced to sit in the audience and watch. But this is perhaps the greatest illusion of human interaction. The profound, undeniable truth is that this magnetism is not magic at all. It is a tool. It is a highly specific, observable, and completely learnable set of behaviors. The invisible pull you felt toward that captivating person was not the result of their DNA. It was the result of the physical and psychological signals they were projecting in that moment. They were speaking a silent language of presence, power, and warmth. A language that registers so deeply in our primal brains that we interpret it as an almost mystical aura. Once you understand that this aura is simply a behavioral output, the entire world of human connection fundamentally changes. You're no longer at the mercy of your natural-born temperament. You hold the controls. There is a pervasive myth that to be truly magnetic, you must possess the booming energy of a relentless extrovert or the striking physical symmetry of a runway model. This misconception has caused countless brilliant, quiet individuals to sideline themselves, believing they simply do not possess the necessary raw materials for profound influence. Let us dismantle this immediately. Extroversion is a personality trait. It dictates how you recharge your energy. Magnetism, however, is a skill. Some of the most deeply compelling people on Earth are profound introverts. They do not command a room through sheer volume or endless anecdotes. Instead, they command it through the sheer grounding weight of their presence. When a quiet person learns to lower the intonation of their voice at the end of a sentence, when they master the art of holding a 2-second pause before replying, and when they strip away the nervous habit of rapid nodding, their quietness transforms from timid to deeply authoritative. They draw you into their world rather than forcing themselves into yours. Consider the physical act of learning to drive a car. Do you remember the very first time you sat behind the steering wheel? The sheer volume of information your brain had to process was staggering. You had to consciously think about the pressure of your foot on the pedal, the angle of the rearview mirror, the spatial awareness of the vehicle, and the rules of the road, all while trying to maintain a straight line. It felt entirely unnatural, perhaps even overwhelming. You were acutely aware of every single movement. But what happens after a year or 5 years of driving? You pull into your driveway after a long day at work, and you suddenly realize you have no active memory of the drive home. Your subconscious mind has completely absorbed the complex mechanics of driving. It has become second nature, a fluid extension of your body. The acquisition of magnetic behavior works in the exact same neurological way. Right now, the idea of consciously modulating your eye contact, managing your internal emotional state, and carefully timing your vocal pauses might feel incredibly deliberate. It might even feel a little awkward, just like gripping that steering wheel for the first time. You might fear that by practicing these behaviors, you are somehow being inauthentic or changing your core personality. But practicing a new way of communicating does not alter your values or your soul. It simply provides you with a new, highly effective vehicle for expressing who you truly are. As you practice these small structural tweaks in your daily conversations, the awkwardness will inevitably dissolve. The conscious effort will fade into muscle memory. What begins as a practice technique will soon become your natural default setting. operating smoothly in the background of your life. Furthermore, because this magnetism is a behavior rather than an inherent trait, it means it is completely under your control. It is a toggle switch, not a permanent state of being. The people who possess the highest levels of this skill do not walk through their entire lives radiating blinding energy 24 hours a day. They go to the grocery store unnoticed. They sit quietly on public transit without drawing a crowd. They turn their magnetism off when they want peace, and they consciously turn it back on when the moment requires it. They simply adjust their posture, shift their internal focus, and bring their presence back to the surface. It is a deeply liberating realization. You do not have to be constantly radiating energy. You only need to know how to flip the switch when the stakes are high, when the conversation matters, or when you simply want to make someone else feel extraordinary. Imagine the trajectory of your life when you can reliably flip that switch. Think about the professional doors that swing open when you walk into a negotiation and project absolute, unshakable confidence mixed with genuine warmth. People instinctively trust you. They want to invest in your ideas, advocate for your promotions, and join your teams. They do not just comply with your requests. They actively seek ways to help you succeed, driven by the profound way you make them feel about themselves. Now, apply this to your personal life. Imagine the deepening of your relationships when your loved ones feel the total, undivided weight of your presence. There is a specific kind of exhaustion in modern life that comes from feeling unseen and unheard. When you learn to project this kind of deep, connected warmth, you become an oasis for the people around you. You leave a lasting emotional imprint that lingers long after you have left the room. The journey you are embarking on is not about adopting a fake persona or putting on a theatrical mask. It is about removing the internal friction and nervous habits that are currently blocking your authentic power. It is about learning the mechanics of human connection so deeply that you can navigate any social landscape with grace and intention. You are stepping into the laboratory of human interaction, and every conversation from this moment forward is an opportunity to experiment, to refine, and to grow. The magic is real, but it is not supernatural. It is practical, it is mechanical, and it belongs entirely to you. Chapter 2. The 3 Pillars of Charisma. Think about a time you sat across a table from someone, perhaps a friend or a colleague, and poured your heart out. You were sharing a struggle, something that genuinely mattered to you, something that kept you awake at night. You looked into their eyes, searching for validation or simply a sign that you were being heard. But as you spoke, you noticed a subtle shift. Their eyes glazed over, just slightly. Their head continued to nod, but the rhythm became mechanical, entirely disconnected from the emotional cadence of your words. When you finally finished your thought, their answering smile was a fraction of a second too late. In that tiny, almost imperceptible delay, a profound sense of isolation washed over you. You felt brushed off, unimportant, and deeply minimized. You probably stopped talking shortly after that. This is the catastrophic cost of a lack of presence. The human brain is exquisitely fine-tuned to read facial expressions in milliseconds. We instinctively know when the lights are on, but nobody is home. When you are not fully present in an interaction, the other person feels it in their gut, and it destroys trust instantly. Presence is the bedrock foundation of all magnetism. Without it, nothing else works. To be truly present means possessing a moment-to-moment awareness of what is happening right in front of you, abandoning the continuous, churning monologue inside your own head. Achieving this state is incredibly difficult because human beings are evolutionarily wired for constant distraction. Our ancestors survived by continuously scanning the horizon for the flicker of a predator or the rustle of prey. In the modern world, this survival mechanism translates into a state of continuous partial attention, where we are always half listening, half planning our next sentence, or half worrying about an email. But because true presence is so exceptionally rare, when you bestow it upon someone, the impact is staggering. When you give another human being your absolute, undivided attention, you make them feel like they are the center of the universe. You can anchor yourself in the present moment through physical grounding. The next time you feel your mind wandering during a conversation, do not panic or berate yourself. Simply shift your focus entirely to the physical sensation in your toes. It sounds almost absurdly simple, but by forcing your brain to sweep its attention down through your physical body to your feet, you instantly pull yourself out of your swirling thoughts and crash back into physical reality. Your eyes will immediately clear, your face will reflect genuine engagement, and the person speaking to you will subconsciously feel the immense, grounding weight of your renewed attention. Once you have established presence, you must build upon it with the two fundamental qualities that human beings assess the moment they meet a stranger: power and warmth. This assessment happens entirely subconsciously and is a direct legacy of our ancient survival instincts. When our ancestors encountered someone new on the savannah, they had to quickly answer two vital questions. First, could this person kill me? Or, alternatively, do they have the strength to protect me? This is the power question. Second, are they a friend or a foe? Will they share their fire and food, or will they steal mine? This is the warmth question. We still ask these exact same questions today, though the context has changed from physical survival to social and professional navigation. We want to know if a person has the capacity to move mountains, and if they care enough to move those mountains for us. Imagine walking into a pivotal job interview with a senior executive. If that executive leans back in a massive chair, speaks in a slow, booming voice, and displays absolute authority, but never once smiles or softens their eyes, they are projecting pure power without warmth. You might respect them, and you will certainly be intimidated by them, but you will also naturally guard your words and hide your true self. You will sense a predator in the room, and your instinct will be to survive the encounter rather than connect. Now flip the scenario. Imagine an executive who leans in close, nods enthusiastically at everything you say, and smiles constantly, but whose posture is slouched and whose voice is hesitant and breathy. They project pure warmth without power. You will like them immediately. You might even feel a protective affection for them, treating them like a sweet, eager-to-please friend. But you will absolutely not feel inspired to follow them into battle or trust them to lead a multinational company through a crisis. They lack the gravity necessary for true influence. The ultimate leader, the truly magnetic individual, balances on the razor's edge of both. They possess the commanding stillness of someone who can weather any storm, yet their eyes crinkle with profound, genuine goodwill. When you encounter someone who is simultaneously highly powerful and warmly accepting, the effect is intoxicating. You feel deeply safe, thoroughly validated, and completely awed all at once. The secret to projecting this lethal combination of presence, power, and warmth lies entirely in your body language. Words matter, but non-verbal communication carries the emotional truth of any interaction. However, here is the catch. It is biologically impossible to consciously micromanage your body language. You cannot actively control the thousands of micro-expressions flashing across your face, the exact tension of your vocal cords, and the subtle shifts in your posture all at the same time. If you try to fake warmth or fake confidence by manipulating your limbs and forcing a smile, you will appear robotic, inauthentic, and deeply unsettling. Instead, you must rely on a fascinating loophole in human biology. Consider what happens to your physical body when you wake up from a terrifying nightmare. You are lying in a perfectly safe, temperature-controlled room, wrapped in soft blankets. There is no physical threat anywhere near you. Yet, your heart is hammering violently against your ribs. Your breathing is shallow and rapid. Your palms are slick with sweat. Why? Because your brain believed the dream was real, and it flooded your bloodstream with adrenaline to help you fight or flee a non-existent monster. Your brain cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined scenario and physical reality. Whatever you hold in your mind, your body will automatically and flawlessly manifest. If your internal state is one of anxiety and self-doubt, those feelings will inevitably leak out through a tight jaw, darting eyes, and defensive posture, no matter how hard you try to stand up straight. But if you learn to cultivate genuine internal states of goodwill, confidence, and calm, your subconscious mind will take over. It will automatically relax your shoulders, deepen your voice, and soften your eyes into a genuine, magnetic expression. Charisma does not begin in your words or your gestures. It begins entirely in your mind. To master your outward impact, you must first learn to master your internal world, which means confronting the invisible forces that actively fight against your confidence every single day. Chapter 3. Identifying your internal blocks. Imagine stepping into a high-stakes negotiation or a crucial first date. You have prepared for weeks, your words are sharp, and your intentions are completely pure. But the moment you sit down, the afternoon sun hits your eyes through an unshaded window, or the stiff collar of your shirt begins digging painfully into your neck. You try to ignore it and power through, focusing entirely on the conversation at hand. But as your counterpart begins to speak about their life or their vision, your eyes narrow sharply against the glare, or your jaw tightens against the persistent itch. You think you are hiding it, but your face is broadcasting severe tension. The human mind is incredibly self-centered. The person sitting across from you does not know about the blinding sun or the terrible collar. They only know that while they were sharing something deeply important, you looked displeased and tense. They instantly assume your expression is a negative reaction to them, and the connection shatters. This is the silent saboteur of human magnetism. Any physical discomfort that affects your external state, even slightly, will completely sabotage how you are perceived by others. Your internal state dictates your body language, and your body language dictates your impact. To protect your presence, you must address physical friction immediately. The strategy is simple but profound. Prevent, recognize, and remedy or explain. You must plan ahead to ensure your clothing breathes and your physical environment is completely comfortable. But when the unpredictable happens, you must act before the other person internalizes your discomfort. Instead of suffering in silence, simply pause, smile warmly, and say that you need to shift your chair slightly because the sun is directly in your eyes. By vocalizing the physical discomfort, you completely neutralize the other person's subconscious fear that you are upset with them. But the physical world is only half the battle. The far more treacherous terrain lies within our own psychology. Consider the excruciating feeling of sending a deeply important message, a vulnerable confession, or a major proposal, and receiving only silence in return. As the hours tick by, your mind begins to spin wildly. You imagine every worst-case scenario, replaying your own words, dissecting every possible flaw. You would gladly welcome a definitive, crushing rejection over the agonizing suspense of not knowing. This happens because the human brain is fundamentally terrified of uncertainty. To our ancient ancestors, the unknown was dangerous, while what was familiar kept us alive. When you are trapped in ambiguity today, your brain registers a severe error, creating a massive spike in anxiety. This anxiety utterly destroys your ability to be present, draining the warmth from your face and replacing it with a tense, distracted gaze. Then there is the quiet, persistent thief of comparison. Imagine sitting at a lovely dinner with someone you care about, enjoying a perfectly fine evening. Suddenly, the table next to you erupts into joyous, uproarious laughter. In a fraction of a second, the quality of your own evening feels entirely diminished. You wonder why your conversation isn't as vibrant, or why your life isn't as seemingly flawless as theirs. We are biologically driven to constantly evaluate our current experience against our past experiences, against idealized expectations, and against the lives of those around us. This relentless measuring cycle yanks you violently out of the present moment. You cannot emanate deep, magnetic warmth while your mind is simultaneously keeping score and feeling secretly dissatisfied. Yet the most destructive obstacle of all is the voice of your own inner critic. Picture a highly competent professional who has just been handed the most significant project of their career. From the outside, they look like a soaring success, but as they sit in the boardroom, surrounded by other executives, a cold, whispering voice in their mind tells them they do not truly belong there. It tells them they are a fraud, that they have just been lucky so far, and that today is the day everyone will finally discover they are completely out of their depth. This specific phenomenon, known as the imposter syndrome, ironically strikes the highest performers the hardest. When you are under the severe assault of your own self-doubt, your brain perceives it as a literal physical attack. Your body does not distinguish between the imagined threat of public humiliation and the real threat of a charging predator. Your system is instantly flooded with adrenaline and cortisol. Your heart rate spikes, your breathing becomes shallow, and your survival instincts take over completely, shutting down the higher cognitive functions responsible for creative thinking and emotional connection. In this state of fight or flight, you are absolutely incapable of projecting charismatic power or warmth. Your face tightens into a defensive mask, and your body language closes off, broadcasting insecurity and fear to everyone in the room. These internal and physical blocks, the blinding sun, the agonizing wait for an answer, the envy of the laughing table, the paralyzing voice of the fraud, are not personal failings. They are universal, biological mechanisms originally designed to keep you safe and alert. But in the modern world of human connection, these ancient alarms are misfiring, locking away your natural magnetism. To unleash the profound presence we established earlier, we cannot simply ignore these obstacles. We must dismantle them. We must learn how to quiet the mind, neutralize the inner critic, and systematically reprogram our biological responses so that our truest, most compelling self can finally step forward into the light. Chapter 4. Conquering the Inner Critic. Imagine a master sculptor standing before a massive, unshaped block of rough stone. The sculptor does not force a shape into the rock. Rather, they believe the masterpiece already exists perfectly within it. Their only job is to carefully, systematically chip away the excess material that hides the beauty underneath. This is precisely how you must approach your own presence and magnetism. You do not need to build a charismatic personality from scratch. It is already there, living inside you. Your only task is to skillfully chip away the heavy, suffocating layers of psychological friction that are keeping your truest self hidden. To do this, you must master a 3-step process to handle the inevitable moments of internal turmoil. You must learn to destigmatize the discomfort, neutralize the negative thoughts, and actively rewrite your reality. The first and most crucial step is destigmatizing the discomfort. Think about a time when you felt a sudden, sharp pang of insecurity, perhaps right before walking into a room full of strangers. Not only did you feel the fear, but you immediately began to judge yourself for feeling it. You told yourself that you should be more confident by now, that a truly successful person would not be sweating through their shirt, and that your anxiety was proof of some fundamental, unfixable flaw within you. We live in a culture that treats any form of emotional discomfort as a disease that needs to be instantly cured or hidden away. We feel bad, and then we feel incredibly guilty and ashamed about feeling bad. But shame is a profoundly toxic emotion. It triggers our deepest, most primal survival fears of being exiled from the tribe, which causes our brain to panic and completely shut down our ability to connect with others. To strip this shame of its power, you must realize that internal discomfort is a completely normal, natural legacy of human evolution. Every single human being on this planet, no matter how serene or overwhelmingly successful they appear on the outside, experiences crippling self-doubt, irrational anger, and deep anxiety. The next time a wave of heavy emotion hits you, do not fight it or judge it. Instead, take a deep breath and deliberately de-dramatize the moment. Remind yourself that at this exact second, millions of other people around the globe are sitting in their cars, staring at their ceilings, or hiding in bathroom stalls, feeling the exact same agonizing emotion you are feeling. You are not uniquely broken. You are simply participating in the shared human experience. By connecting your private struggle to a global community of human beings, the heavy burden of shame begins to dissolve, leaving you much lighter and far more resilient. Once you have removed the stigma from the feeling, you must move to the second step, neutralizing the negative thoughts. We wander through life carrying the dangerous assumption that our minds provide us with an accurate, objective representation of reality. This is a complete illusion. The human brain is constantly bombarded with millions of sensory inputs every second, and to prevent us from going insane, it acts as a massive filter. Because our ancient ancestors needed to remember the location of predators much more than the location of pretty flowers, our brains developed a severe negativity bias. We are biologically programmed to ignore 100 pieces of positive feedback and violently obsess over one single negative detail. Consider a brilliant young architect who has just presented the design of her life to a board of elite developers. She stands at the front of the room, her heart pounding as the presentation ends. The senior partners offer glowing, enthusiastic praise, calling her work revolutionary and brilliant. But as the meeting adjourns, one junior associate casually mentions that the lighting in the west hallway seems a bit harsh. As the architect drives home that night, does she bask in the glory of the senior partner's praise? No. She grips the steering wheel, her stomach tied in knots, replaying that one comment about the hallway lighting on an endless, agonizing loop. Her brain has filtered out a massive victory and magnified a tiny critique until it feels like a catastrophic failure. When your mind begins to spin these dark, heavy narratives, you must consciously intervene. Recognize that your brain is simply running its ancient software, presenting you with a highly distorted, overwhelmingly negative slice of reality. You do not have to believe every thought that crosses your mind. Imagine your negative thoughts as ugly graffiti spray-painted on the wall of a building you are walking past. You can acknowledge that the graffiti is there, and you might even find it unpleasant to look at, but you do not suddenly believe that you are an ugly person just because you saw it. Your thoughts are nothing more than electrical impulses flickering across your synapses. They are not the absolute truth, and they certainly are not a verdict on your worth. With the negativity neutralized, you are ready for the final, most powerful step, rewriting reality. Because your physical body cannot tell the difference between a real event and a vividly imagined one, you have the profound ability to choose the narrative that best serves your current needs. Imagine you are sitting in a taxi, stuck in absolute, unmoving gridlock traffic on your way to the most critical presentation of your career. You can feel your blood pressure rising, the sweat forming on your palms, and the bitter anger boiling up as you realize you are going to be late. If you let this rage consume you, you will walk into that boardroom radiating frantic, hostile energy, and your presentation will be a disaster. Instead, you must actively rewrite the narrative. What if this horrendous traffic jam is not a curse, but a profound stroke of luck? What if the client you are rushing to meet is currently dealing with a massive internal crisis? And your delay is actually giving them desperately needed time to breathe, saving the entire relationship. Or, on a more primal level, what if the delay kept your taxi from being in the middle of a catastrophic intersection accident just a mile down the road? Your logical mind might initially resist these alternative realities as foolish self-deception, but neuroscientific research shows that deciding to change your beliefs about a situation rapidly decreases the stress chemicals in your brain. Choose the reality that puts you in a calm, confident state, because that is the state you need to be in to walk through those doors and command the room. Sometimes, however, the reality we need to rewrite involves deep, lingering resentment toward another person. Carrying anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to suffer. It destroys your physical health and completely blocks your ability to project warmth. To clear this specific blockage, you can use a deeply therapeutic writing exercise. Sit down with a blank piece of paper and write a letter to the person who wronged you, pouring out every ounce of your anger and hurt. Then, take a fresh piece of paper and write their response to you. Write the exact heartfelt apology you have always desperately wanted them to give you. Have them take complete responsibility for their actions and express profound regret. It may feel incredibly strange at first, but your subconscious mind will absorb the apology. The heavy chains of resentment will loosen, and your body language will physically soften in the days that follow. Finally, to truly master your inner world, you must develop the ultimate superpower, the ability to be completely comfortable with discomfort. most of us spend our entire lives running from physical and emotional pain. Imagine being trapped on a sweltering, unmoving subway car during the peak of summer. The air conditioning is broken, the air is suffocatingly stale, and a baby is screaming relentlessly in the next seat. Your instinct is to mentally fight the situation, tensing your muscles and feeding your own panic and irritation, but fighting reality only amplifies your suffering. Instead, you must do the exact opposite. You must dive deeply into the physical sensations of your discomfort. Focus entirely on the exact temperature of the sweat on your collar, the specific tightness in your jaw, the precise vibration of the noise in your ears. Examine these sensations with the objective curiosity of a scientist. By shifting your focus from your mental outrage to the pure physical data of the moment, you anchor yourself firmly in the present. You realize that the sensations, while intensely unpleasant, are not actually killing you. They are just sensations, and like all things, they will eventually pass. When you stop running from discomfort and learn to simply observe it, you strip away its power to terrorize you. You build an unbreakable emotional resilience, clearing the final obstacles from your path and creating a pure, open space where your most charismatic self can finally take root. Chapter 5. Designing your charismatic mindset. There is a profound, almost magical loophole in human biology that you can exploit to instantly transform your presence. It all begins with a single, startling fact. Your brain cannot distinguish between a vividly imagined event and absolute physical reality. If you close your eyes right now and vividly imagine dragging your fingernails across a chalkboard, you will likely feel an involuntary physical shudder. If you imagine slicing into a tart, bright green lime, and squeezing the juice onto your tongue, your mouth will automatically begin to water. In both cases, the stimulus was entirely fictional, yet your body produced a highly specific, undeniable physical reaction. This neurological phenomenon is the ultimate master key to human magnetism. Because your body flawlessly manifests whatever your mind believes, you have the power to consciously design your internal state, thereby forcing your body language to broadcast absolute confidence, deep warmth, and undeniable power. To harness this, you must master the art of mental rehearsal. Elite performers do not wait until they are in the spotlight to figure out how they are going to feel. They architect the feeling long before the curtain rises. Consider the grueling dedication required to execute a massive creative project, perhaps a commitment to publish 100 consecutive days of complex audio recordings for an audience spanning across continents. The sheer stamina required to maintain that level of output is staggering. When the pressure mounts and exhaustion sets in around day 40, pure willpower is no longer enough to carry you through. You must rely on visualization. Long before you sit down to record or present, you must close your eyes and play a high-definition movie in your mind. You must see the audience receiving your work. You must hear the swell of applause, feel the solid ground beneath your feet, and let the warm, heavy glow of total triumph rise in your chest. When you open your eyes, you are no longer trying to act confident. Your bloodstream is already flooded with the chemical reality of success, and your posture will naturally reflect it. To deepen this effect, you must curate your auditory environment. Music is a direct shortcut to the emotional centers of the brain. Before a high-stakes encounter, put on a soundtrack that physically moves you, something with a sweeping cinematic quality that makes you feel unstoppable. Let the music set the rhythm of your breathing and the height of your posture. Imagine your internal mental state as a physical space that must be designed with a breathtaking, ultra-clean, minimalist aesthetic. Just as a high-end environment feels intentional, premium, and completely devoid of clutter, your mind must be cleared of nervous chatter and decorated solely with thoughts that serve your highest purpose. You must deliberately throw out the psychological junk and furnish your mind entirely with absolute conviction. While confidence gives you gravity, it is warmth that makes you truly magnetic. Yet, for many highly driven people, genuine warmth is the most difficult element to access. When you are moving fast and carrying heavy responsibilities, it is easy to become cold and transactional. The most accessible doorway into warmth is gratitude. This does not mean forcing a toxic fake positivity upon yourself. It means a deliberate, tactical shifting of your focus. Think of the relentless daily grind of running a physical retail business. You might be agonizing over the seasonal price fluctuations of bulk commodities, constantly tracking the supply and demand cycles of raw ingredients just to protect your margins. It is incredibly easy to let the cold calculus of procurement freeze the warmth right out of your face, but when you are standing in front of a customer or a critical vendor, you cannot let that tension show. You must find a micro moment of gratitude. Focus on the simple fact that you have the breath in your lungs to negotiate or silently appreciate the craftsmanship of the desk you are sitting at. This tiny, invisible pivot drops the defensive guard of your nervous system. Your facial muscles will involuntarily soften, and a subtle, highly attractive warmth will flood your expression. You can then escalate this feeling by practicing active goodwill toward the people around you. Goodwill is the simple, silent act of wishing others well without needing anything in return. The next time you are interacting with someone, silently try to find 3 things you genuinely appreciate about them, even if it is simply the neatness of their attire or their punctuality. Or try a powerful visual trick. Imagine the person you are speaking with possesses a pair of invisible, shimmering wings. It sounds absurd, but this playful visualization forces your brain to view them as a fundamentally good, even noble being. Your eyes will instantly lose their harsh, evaluative edge and melt into a look of profound, empathetic acceptance. When people feel that you are looking at them with a baseline of absolute goodwill, they become deeply drawn to you. They do not know why they suddenly feel so safe and valued in your presence. They only know that they never want the feeling to end. However, the deepest and most challenging form of warmth is the warmth you direct inward. You can project all the confidence in the world, but if you harbor a quiet, brutal contempt for yourself, people will subconsciously feel the chill. Self-compassion is not self-pity. Self-pity is a paralyzing state of victimhood that whines about the unfairness of the world. Self-compassion is the fierce, stabilizing act of treating yourself with the same profound loyalty and forgiveness that you would offer a cherished friend. When your inner critic attacks you for a perceived failure, you must not fight it. Instead, you must wrap that critical voice in complete, radical acceptance. Imagine someone you deeply admire looking at you with total forgiveness. Let them tell you that at this exact stage of your growth, with all your flaws and missteps, you are absolutely perfect. As you absorb this radical self-forgiveness, the tight defensive armor around your chest will crack open and you will physically expand. This leads directly to the physical mechanics of state creation. Just as your mind controls your body, your physical posture sends direct, unyielding commands back to your brain. You cannot feel truly depressed if you are jumping up and down with a massive smile on your face, and you cannot feel deeply confident if your shoulders are slumped and your chest is caved in. Before stepping into the arena, you must take up space. Stand tall, roll your shoulders back, and breathe deeply into your belly. By commanding your physical form to occupy maximum territory, you signal to your endocrine system that you are the absolute master of your environment, and your brain will reward you with a massive rush of assertive energy. Finally, you must protect this curated mindset with fierce intentionality. You do not sprint a marathon without stretching, and you cannot expect to manifest profound magnetism without a strategic warm-up. Willpower and emotional regulation are finite resources. Think of the relentless logistical puzzles you face in life, like coordinating a complex journey where multiple people are arriving from entirely different cities to converge on a single destination. If you spend your entire morning fighting the friction of delayed schedules, mixed communications, and travel stress, your emotional reserves will be utterly depleted by the time you actually arrive. You must strategically sequence your day. Do not schedule a soul-crushing administrative meeting an hour before you need to deliver a visionary pitch. Guard your energy ruthlessly. Surround yourself with the music, the people, and the physical environments that actively build your power, so that when the crucial moment arrives, your magnetism flows effortlessly from a deep, overflowing reservoir. Chapter 6. Finding your authentic style. There is a dangerous assumption that true magnetism looks the same on everyone. We tend to visualize one specific archetype, the booming, theatrical extrovert who sets a room on fire the moment they walk through the door. But if you try to force your unique personality into a mold that does not fit your soul, the human brain will instantly detect the friction. You will come across as awkward, strained, and fundamentally inauthentic. The truth is that there is not just one way to captivate a room. Magnetism is a multifaceted diamond, and depending on the angle of the light, it reflects entirely different colors. By understanding the distinct styles of influence available to you, you can strategically select the one that aligns with your natural strengths, your specific goals, and the immediate demands of the situation. The first and perhaps most accessible mode of influence is focus charisma. This style is built entirely upon the foundation of profound, unwavering presence. It is the ability to make the person standing in front of you feel like they are the only breathing entity in the universe. Imagine a young business owner sitting across a heavy wooden desk from a hardened, cynical supplier. The market is volatile, and the seasonal prices of essential commodities like soybean oil and raw sugar are fluctuating wildly. The stakes are immense. The survival of a multi-generational family business hangs on securing a favorable bulk rate. The owner does not resort to pounding the table or making aggressive demands. Instead, he leans in and deploys focus charisma. He locks eyes, slows his breathing, and listens with absolute, undivided intent as the supplier complains about the shrinking margins and logistical nightmares. The owner strips away all distractions, offering profound presence. By making the hardened supplier feel completely heard, respected, and understood, the psychological defenses drop. A hostile negotiation transforms into a collaborative partnership, simply because the owner knew how to wield the immense power of focused attention. Now consider an entirely different arena. Imagine an ambitious creator standing before a small, exhausted production team. They are about to embark on a seemingly impossible endeavor, a grueling, relentless sprint to produce and release 100 consecutive days of high-level content targeting an international audience. The team is overwhelmed by the sheer mechanics of the task and the massive uncertainty of the outcome. This is where visionary charisma becomes the ultimate weapon. The creator does not offer them warm hugs or logistical spreadsheets. Instead, he offers a piercing, absolute belief. He paints a vivid, sensory-rich picture of the ultimate destination, describing the global impact, the millions of listeners, and the profound legacy they are building. Visionary charisma strips away the crushing weight of uncertainty. When people are afraid of the unknown, they desperately crave a leader who possesses an unshakable conviction. By projecting absolute certainty in a noble cause, you ignite a fire in others that pure logic could never spark. But there are moments when raw conviction and intense focus are entirely the wrong tools for the job. Picture the sheer chaos of coordinating a massive, complex family trip. Relatives are arriving from 3 different cities, converging on a crowded, frantic railway station on their way to a deeply important cultural destination. Tempers are flaring, luggage is misplaced, and exhaustion is setting in. If you try to command this situation with rigid authority, you will only escalate the panic. This environment requires the soothing, anchoring power of kindness charisma. This style relies entirely on radiating profound warmth and unconditional acceptance. You soften your eyes, drop your shoulders, and speak with a resonant, calming tone. You look at a stressed, frantic relative and silently project complete goodwill, accepting their frustration without judgment. Kindness charisma wraps people in a blanket of emotional safety. It connects directly with the human heart, making it the perfect antidote to hostility and fear, and capable of melting the defenses of the most difficult, unyielding personalities. Finally, we arrive at the most primal form of influence, authority charisma. Imagine a lead designer walking into a boardroom filled with skeptical corporate executives. The designer is pitching a radical rebrand, an ultra-clean, minimalist, premium aesthetic that strips away decades of cluttered legacy design. The board is highly resistant to change. To win this room, the designer cannot be overly accommodating or endlessly agreeable. They must project pure, undeniable status. Authority charisma is rooted in our most ancient survival instincts. We are biologically hardwired to defer to those who project absolute power and competence. The designer claims the physical space in the room, taking a wide, grounded stance. Their clothing is immaculate and high status, silently signaling success. They speak slowly, dropping the intonation of their voice at the end of every sentence, leaving zero room for doubt. They do not ask for approval. They present an undeniable reality. When you master authority charisma, you bypass critical resistance and command immediate compliance. The true master of influence understands that they do not have to force themselves into a single, rigid box. You are a highly versatile instrument, capable of playing many different chords. You can open a critical meeting with the commanding weight of authority, seamlessly transition into focus charisma to absorb a team member's concern, and close the interaction with a deep, resonant flash of kindness. As you navigate your days, read the emotional landscape of the room, respect your own authentic baseline, and consciously select the tool that best serves your ultimate objective. You have the entire arsenal at your disposal. Now, you only need to choose your weapon. Chapter 7. The Art of the First Impression. The human brain is a fiercely efficient, staggeringly fast calculating machine. In the absolute fraction of a second it takes for you to cross the threshold of a room, long before your voice ever breaks the silence, a profound and permanent verdict has already been rendered. In less time than it takes to blink, the people looking at you have assessed your social standing, your level of success, your trustworthiness, and your fundamental competence. This initial evaluation is not a logical process, it is a primal reflex. Once this split-second judgment is cast, it hardens like concrete. Human beings possess a deeply ingrained psychological stubbornness. When faced with the choice between changing our minds about someone and actively searching for evidence to prove our initial assumption correct, we will almost always choose the latter. Everything you say and do for the rest of your relationship with that person will be filtered through the permanent lens of that very first glance. To master this fleeting, critical window, you must understand the ancient software currently running inside the minds of everyone you meet. Hundreds of thousands of years ago, when our ancestors encountered a stranger on the open plains, they did not have the luxury of engaging in a lengthy, polite dialogue to determine the stranger's character. Their survival depended on answering two immediate questions. First, are they a friend or a foe? And second, do they have the power to protect me or destroy me? We no longer roam the ancient plains, but when we walk into a modern corporate boardroom or a crowded social gathering, our reptilian brains are still frantically asking those exact same questions. We are constantly searching for visual cues to tell us if the person standing before us is an ally we can trust or a threat we must manage. The most immediate and powerful visual cue we offer is our clothing. We like to believe that we are highly rational creatures who look past superficial appearances, but clothing is the modern equivalent of ancient tribal wear. It is an immediate broadcasted signal of our values, our status, and our allegiances. When people encounter someone dressed in a style similar to their own, their defensive walls instinctively drop. They subconsciously recognize you as a member of their tribe, assuming a shared background and shared beliefs. Consider an entrepreneur stepping into a high-stakes negotiation to secure the lease for a highly anticipated, ultra-clean, minimalist retail space. The entrepreneur possesses an impeccable, premium aesthetic, favoring sleek, modern branding that strips away all traditional clutter. But the property developers they are meeting with are deeply entrenched in a conservative, formal corporate culture. If the entrepreneur walks into that mahogany-lined office wearing overly casual, avant-garde clothing, the developer's primal brains will instantly flag them as a disruptive outsider. The developers will subconsciously resist the pitch before a single financial metric is even discussed. However, if the entrepreneur calibrates their aesthetic, maintaining their signature, premium minimalism, but elevating it into a sharply tailored formal suit, they instantly bridge the gap. They signal to the developers that they understand the rules of the corporate tribe, while simultaneously projecting the quiet, high-end authority of a boss who completely controls their own brand. You do not have to abandon your identity, but you must strategically dress to reduce the friction in the room. Once the visual hurdle is cleared, the interaction moves to the physical realm. The handshake is a profound social ritual, representing the literal crossing of a physical boundary. Historically, extending the right hand was a demonstration of peace, proving to the other person that you were not concealing a weapon. Today, it remains the ultimate physical transfer of trust. A weak, lifeless handshake, often described as the dead fish, instantly destroys any illusion of authority or power. It signals hesitation and a lack of conviction. Conversely, a crushing, aggressive grip signals an overcompensating ego attempting to dominate rather than connect. The perfect handshake is a calculated balance of warmth and undeniable power. It begins before the hands even touch. You must ensure your right hand is entirely free, shifting any bags or cold, condensation-covered drinks to your left hand well in advance, so your palm remains warm and dry. As you step forward, you maintain strong, relaxed eye contact, offering a brief, genuine smile. You extend your hand perfectly perpendicular to the floor, projecting equality. You ensure that the web of your thumb meets the web of their thumb, wrapping your fingers firmly around the contours of their hand. You apply a firm, steady squeeze, matching their pressure, and shake from the elbow, not the wrist. In that brief, 2-second physical lock, you project an unshakable, grounding presence. With the visual and physical foundations established, the interaction finally shifts to verbal communication. The greatest conversationalists on earth do not captivate a room by delivering endless, rehearsed monologues about their own achievements. They captivate a room by making the person standing in front of them feel like the most fascinating human being alive. The easiest and most disarming way to break the ice is to offer a highly specific, genuine compliment about something they have chosen to wear, followed immediately by an open-ended question. When you ask someone, "What is the story behind that?" you strike a deep emotional chord. Human beings are natural storytellers, and you have just handed them the microphone and permission to take the stage. As the conversation flows, your sole objective is to keep the spotlight shining warmly and brightly upon them. When they inevitably attempt to turn the conversation back toward you, you masterfully deploy the bounce-back technique. You answer their question with a concise fact, add a brief, relatable personal note to build rapport, and then smoothly redirect the momentum back in their direction. You replace the word "I" with the word "you" as frequently as possible. You are not trying to prove your intelligence to them. You are actively working to make them feel highly intelligent in your presence. When people feel brilliant, heard, and deeply validated while standing next to you, they will permanently associate that intoxicating emotional high with your character. Finally, the true art of the first impression concludes with the graceful exit. Leaving a conversation abruptly or awkwardly can instantly unravel all the warmth and trust you have meticulously built. You never want the other person to feel abandoned or dismissed because your eyes are wandering the room for a more important target. Instead, you exit by offering a final, departing gift of undeniable value. You wait for a natural pause and you offer a piece of information, a highly relevant book recommendation, or an introduction to someone else in the room who can help them achieve their goals. You express genuine gratitude for the time they shared with you, leaving them not just with a fading memory of a good conversation, but with a tangible benefit. You walk away leaving a permanent magnetic imprint, a flawless first impression that will effortlessly open doors for years to come. Chapter 8. The Silent Language of Leadership. Have you ever watched a truly magnetic leader enter a chaotic room? Before a single syllable leaves their mouth, the temperature of the room seems to change. It is as if an invisible wave precedes them, washing over the frantic energy of the crowd and replacing it with sudden, sharp attention. We often credit this shift to their reputation or their title, but the truth is entirely biological. The most profound communication happens in absolute silence. Our brains are ancient, exquisite instruments designed to read the physical and emotional states of the people around us through their posture, their micro-expressions, and the way they occupy physical space. When you learn to master this silent language, you bypass the critical, logical filters of the human mind and speak directly to the emotional core. You do not just convince people, you physically move them. To understand how this works, you must first understand that emotions are highly contagious. Think about a high-stakes environment, perhaps a team of designers and engineers working late into the night on the eve of a critical product launch. The room is thick with anxiety, the glow of monitors illuminating exhausted faces. Suddenly, the project director walks in. If that director strides through the door with a tight jaw, rapid breathing, and frantic eyes, that panic will instantly infect the entire room like a virus. The team's collective blood pressure will spike, mistakes will multiply, and the energy will spiral into chaos. But imagine if that same director pauses at the threshold, takes a deep, grounding breath, drops their shoulders, and walks in with a slow, relaxed, and deliberate pace. Without a word being spoken, the team's collective nervous system will begin to regulate. This is not magic. It is the firing of highly specialized neurons in the brain, which automatically replicate the emotional states of those we observe, particularly those in positions of authority. As a leader, your internal emotional state is never private. It is broadcasted outward and absorbed by everyone around you. Therefore, the ultimate act of leadership is regulating your own physical and emotional tension before you ever attempt to regulate others. Once you recognize that our nervous systems are constantly communicating, you can use this biological tether to build profound, immediate trust. Consider the delicate challenge of attempting to connect with someone who is deeply defensive or skeptical. Imagine a seasoned mentor trying to break through to a highly guarded, frustrated protege who is sitting with their arms tightly crossed, their body angled away, their chin tucked downward. If the mentor leans in aggressively, uses wide, expansive gestures, and speaks with booming enthusiasm, the protege will subconsciously feel threatened and retreat even further behind their emotional walls. The physical mismatch creates intense psychological friction. The masterful approach is the art of the subtle echo. The mentor instead sits back, loosely crossing their own arms, matching the slower, heavier cadence of the protege's breathing and adopting a similar subdued vocal tone. This physical mirroring sends a deep, primal signal of safety. It tells the other person's nervous system that you are aligned and that they are safe in your presence. As the conversation unfolds and the invisible bond of trust strengthens, the mentor can slowly begin to uncross their arms, open their posture, and lift their gaze. Because the physical tether has been established, the protege will subconsciously follow, physically opening up as their psychological walls begin to melt away. This silent dance of trust extends beyond your own body and into the physical environment you occupy. The way you arrange the space between yourself and another person can entirely dictate the outcome of a conversation. Picture a crucial negotiation between two potential business partners who have circled each other for months. The default instinct is to sit directly across from one another at a massive, polished boardroom table. But this geometric arrangement is inherently adversarial. It physically places a barrier between the two parties and forces them into a direct, head-on confrontation that mimics ancient combative stances. The tension in the room will naturally run high. Now imagine the host of the meeting subtly shifting the environment, inviting the guest to sit in a pair of comfortable chairs arranged at a 90-degree angle around a small, low coffee table. Suddenly, the adversarial geometry is broken. Sitting at an angle removes the subconscious threat of a direct physical clash. It signals collaboration, placing both individuals on the same team, looking out at the problem together rather than looking at each other as the problem. By simply altering the architecture of the space, the psychological barriers are dismantled and true connection flourishes. When the physical space is optimized, the connection is cemented through the eyes. We often hear that strong eye contact is essential for projecting confidence, but the quality of that gaze matters far more than the duration. There is a vast difference between the hard, piercing stare of an interrogator and the warm, enveloping gaze of a true listener. Imagine being at a crowded, noisy social event, surrounded by swirling conversations. You are speaking with someone who maintains constant eye contact, but their eyes are narrow, sharp, and intensely focused, as if they are evaluating you or searching for a flaw. It triggers a low-grade stress response. You feel scrutinized and defensive. Now imagine a different encounter in that same crowded room. This person looks at you, but their facial muscles are completely relaxed. The skin around their eyes is soft, and their gaze feels wide and inviting, taking in your entire presence rather than locking onto a single point. This soft focus completely disarms the nervous system. It communicates absolute acceptance and profound warmth. Furthermore, when the interaction inevitably draws to a close, a charismatic individual will not simply look away and step back. They will hold that soft, warm eye contact for 3 full seconds after the final words are spoken. In the fast-paced blur of modern interaction, those 3 silent seconds of lingering connection feel incredibly rare and deeply validating. It is the ultimate non-verbal signature, ensuring that the person remembers exactly how extraordinary you made them feel. While warmth invites people in, absolute power is what compels them to follow. The physical expression of power is entirely related to the amount of space you are willing to occupy. Picture a junior executive preparing to present a radical, high-risk strategy to a board of senior directors. If they walk into the room with their shoulders hunched, their elbows pinned tightly to their ribs, and their documents clutched defensively to their chest, they are physically shrinking. They are signaling to the room that they feel small, vulnerable, and undeserving of authority. The board will subconsciously dismiss their ideas before the first slide is even shown. To project undeniable power, you must command your physical territory. Imagine a majestic apex predator surveying its domain. It does not shrink or apologize for its size. The executive must plant their feet firmly on the floor, roll their shoulders back and down, and let their chest physically expand. By draping an arm casually over the back of a spare chair or placing their hands widely on the table, they claim the space around them. This physical expansion triggers a biological cascade, lowering stress hormones and flooding the brain with the chemical markers of dominance and calm. You do not just look more powerful to the room, you physically become more powerful inside your own biology. The final crowning element of this silent language is the mastery of stillness. In moments of high pressure, our bodies betray our internal anxiety through 1,000 tiny nervous movements. We pick at our fingernails, adjust our collars, shift our weight from foot to foot, and nod our heads rapidly in a desperate attempt to show agreement and secure validation. Every single one of these frantic micro-movements bleeds away your authority. True power is unhurried. Think of a monarch holding court. They do not fidget, they do not rush to fill the silence, and they do not constantly nod to appease their subjects. They exist in a state of absolute, unshakable poise. When someone speaks to you, resist the urge to provide a constant stream of verbal affirmations and rapid head bobs. Absorb their words with a steady, relaxed posture. Let your silence carry weight. When you strip away the nervous friction of constant movement, what remains is a core of undeniable magnetic gravity. You become the quiet, unshakable center of any room you enter, wielding an influence that words alone could never achieve. Chapter 9. The Charismatic Life. The journey toward magnetism is not a destination at which you arrive, but a landscape you choose to inhabit. We often make the mistake of viewing charisma as a performance, a grueling, exhausting act we must switch on whenever we are in public, only to collapse in relief when we finally return to the solitude of our own homes. This perspective is not only unsustainable, it is fundamentally flawed. True magnetism does not drain your batteries, it recharges them. When you operate from a place of genuine presence, warm goodwill, and grounded power, you are not acting. You are simply removing the friction from your interactions. You are no longer wasting precious energy on internal battles with self-doubt or struggling to manage the impression you are making. You are moving through the world with a sense of alignment that allows you to be fully, authentically yourself, even in the most demanding environments. Living the charismatic life requires a shift in how you allocate your most precious resource, your attention. Our modern environment is designed to fragment our focus, pulling our energy into 1,000 different directions simultaneously. To live with magnetism, you must become a fierce guardian of your own mental ecosystem. This means being deeply selective about what you allow into your mind, especially before a high-stakes moment. You would never dream of eating a toxic, heavy meal immediately before running a race, yet we routinely subject our minds to toxic, heavy inputs, frantic emails, aggressive news cycles, or draining, critical people, right before we need to be at our most magnetic. You must cultivate a pre-performance routine that buffers your mind, whether it is a curated playlist that anchors you in confidence, a few minutes of silent meditation to ground your presence, or the simple act of stepping into a quiet space to reset your breathing. You must treat your internal state with the same rigorous care that an athlete treats their physical body. This intentionality extends to the way you relate to the people around you. One of the greatest challenges of increasing your personal magnetism is that you will inevitably attract more attention, more demands, and more desire for your time than you ever anticipated. As your presence becomes more potent, people will naturally gravitate toward you, looking to you for validation, for guidance, and for connection. This is the moment where your integrity is tested. You cannot be everything to everyone, and trying to do so will only dilute the quality of your presence. Living a charismatic life means having the courage to set firm, compassionate boundaries. You do not need to be perpetually on to be a charismatic person. You have the absolute right to flip the switch, to turn off the spotlight, and to retreat into periods of total silence and solitude. In fact, those who have the greatest impact are often those who are most disciplined about their periods of withdrawal. They understand that to continue radiating warmth and power, they must regularly return to the source. As you integrate these practices, you will notice a fundamental shift in your relationship with the world. You will stop looking at social and professional interactions as a series of obstacles to be overcome or performances to be managed. You will begin to see them as a vast, interconnected laboratory of human experience. You will become fascinated by the subtle, silent dynamics of every room you enter. You will observe how a small shift in your posture can completely change the energy of a board meeting, or how a single, well-placed pause can shift the entire trajectory of a difficult negotiation. This shift from a mindset of survival to a mindset of observation is the hallmark of the charismatic life. You are no longer a passive participant in your own life. You are an active architect of your interactions. The true, lasting reward of this journey is not the money, the influence, or the adoration you may attract. Those are merely the external indicators of your success. The deepest reward is the internal transformation. When you stop fighting the internal ghosts of insecurity, when you stop masking your presence, and when you learn to project your authentic power with warmth, you begin to experience a profound sense of self-acceptance. You will find that you no longer need to be constantly validated by the room to know your own worth. You will walk with a quiet, unshakable confidence that does not depend on the feedback of others. You will realize that the magnetism you were seeking on the outside was actually a reflection of the strength you built on the inside. As you continue to move forward, remember that this is a practice of constant refinement. There will be days when you feel entirely in the flow, radiating presence and warmth effortlessly, and there will be days when you feel scattered, tense, and entirely ungrounded. This is not a failure. It is simply part of the human experience. The goal is not to be a perfect, unmoving statue of charisma, but to be a highly adaptive human being. When you lose your grounding, you will have the tools to find it again. When you lose your warmth, you will know exactly how to reignite it. You have transitioned from being a person who is blown about by the winds of circumstance into a person who can reliably set their own internal weather. You are not just mastering the art of the first impression or the mechanics of a speech. You are mastering the art of being human. You are choosing to live with presence. You are choosing to act with power, and you are choosing to connect with warmth. This is the charismatic life, and from this point forward, it is yours to command. Chapter 10. Navigating high-stakes environments. The true measure of your magnetism is not how you perform when the conditions are perfect, but how you remain grounded when the ground itself is shifting beneath your feet. In the course of your life, you will inevitably face moments of acute crisis, a sudden, catastrophic failure of a project, the unexpected departure of a key team member, or a heated confrontation where the stakes are life-changing. In these volatile moments, the natural human instinct is to contract, to become defensive, and to let your internal panic dictate your body language. You must resist this instinct with every fiber of your being. When others are spiraling into uncertainty, the charismatic individual becomes a pillar of calm, decisive, and reassuring presence. You handle a crisis not by shouting louder, but by becoming stiller. You become the anchor that holds the ship steady while everyone else is panicking about the storm. When you are forced to deliver bad news, whether to a client, a colleague, or a member of your family, your charisma will be tested by the visceral discomfort of the situation. The impulse will be to deflect, to use jargon to soften the blow, or to physically pull away because the interaction is painful. Do not do this. Charismatic leadership in a crisis requires the courage to be fully present in the unpleasantness. When delivering criticism or breaking difficult news, use the soften and land approach. Keep your posture open and your gaze steady and warm. Do not hide behind a screen or a hurried, impersonal email. If possible, deliver the news in a space that feels safe and private, and give the other person the absolute, undivided attention of your presence. Acknowledge their perspective with genuine empathy, validate their feelings, and then state the facts with absolute clarity and lack of blame. You can be firm, you can be resolute, and you can be entirely honest, all while emanating a deep, resonant, and unwavering sense of humanity. There will also be times when you must interact with people who are, by any reasonable definition, toxic. They are consistently cynical, they thrive on sowing doubt, or they are deeply manipulative. The amateur mistake is to try and win them over with massive displays of warmth, which they will inevitably interpret as weakness to be exploited. When dealing with difficult people, your charisma must shift toward an authoritative, protective stance. You must maintain firm, impenetrable boundaries. You do not need to be unkind, but you must be unyielding. Keep your interactions focused, professional, and strictly limited. Do not look for their approval, and do not waste your precious mental energy trying to understand the deep, dark roots of their behavior. You protect your own magnetism by refusing to engage in their chaos. You hold the space, you maintain your calm, and you exit the interaction the moment your objective is achieved. Finally, you must realize that the greatest challenge you will face is not the external crisis or the difficult person. It is the silent, ongoing challenge of living a life that remains aligned with your own highest standards. You have now acquired a powerful, sophisticated set of tools. You know how to command a room with presence, how to influence others with power, and how to build deep, lasting rapport with warmth. These tools are essentially a form of high-level technology for human connection. And just like any powerful technology, they can be used for profound good or for selfish manipulation. The charismatic life is a choice you make every single day. It is the choice to use your influence to build, to inspire, and to uplift, rather than to extract, to manipulate, or to inflate your own ego. The true final test of your magnetism is whether the people you influence are better, stronger, and more capable after they have spent time with you than they were before. As you move forward, keep your intentions pure. Stay grounded in the work of constant self-reflection. Remember that your magnetism is not something you possess. It is something you share. It is a flickering light you carry within you, and your only job is to ensure that the flame stays bright, steady, and focused on illuminating the path for everyone around you. You are now the sculptor of your own presence, and the masterpiece you are revealing is the most powerful, authentic, and magnetic version of yourself.